Welcome to The Fix,
the new way to get your copy reviewed by two former copy chiefs.
because whether you're an aspiring copywriter or you've been in the industry for decades,
The best way to improve your work isn't to read books, blog posts, or online guides.
it's to see real writing, your writing, being reviewed and improved in front of your eyes.
And that's the goal of The Fix, to bring you inside a virtual writer's room
And watch along as we review, edit and rewrite real copy.
from real writers like you. So let's get straight into this week's episode. And remember, if you like what you see here,
Please share The Fix with anyone you think would find it valuable. It is completely free. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of our quickfire question and answer session. Glenn is ready to board the brevity bus. I'm not going to lie, I'm not sure you really understood the true philosophy behind the brevity bus. But let's have another go.
we can try. We can figure it out. I mean, this has already become an unbreved introduction, but we'll try our hardest. Yeah.
Right, let's get straight back into it. So, how do you find new copywriting clients?
How do you find them? You start, it depends where you are in your career, but ultimately I would say the best thing you can do is go to the places where those clients hang out, both literally and metaphorically. If you can go to meetings, if you can go to conferences, if you can go to these and speak to them, engage with them. What that kind of is leading towards is the clients that you want to work with. I don't think you should be necessarily writing on spec or anything, but you should be trying to offer, like, depending on where you are in your career, but offer ideas. If you've got ideas for a client that you really like, email them, get in touch with them, go to the Earl's Court show and speak to them and say, I'm a copywriter, I've been thinking about doing this, I've got this really idea. You will find most people are receptive to that, providing you're not like an annoying know-it-all and like go, oh, well, actually I've a thing, and being like a fanboy. It's about being genuine, going, no, I've got this thing here, I'm off. It's that kind of, I'm doing this anyway. I thought you might be interested. That's where I would always start. I always say, like, that said, if you're absolutely starting out, first-time copywriter, and you want to try and go freelance too soon without working for someone, you can still do that, but go to local businesses where they are hanging out. Is there a community hub kind of thing? Is that go and speak, show yourself and show people what you do. That's the first call. There's loads of other things, but it's brevity bus. So.
And I guess one final point would be look in the marketplace, by which I mean find copy that you like and then work out who's putting that copy out and then write to those people. Because if you have an appreciation of somebody else's work, one, there's a greater chance that you'll be good at writing that. Two, you'll be able to talk to them about how good you think their work is, not in a sycophantic way, but you'll be able to have a conversation about it. So look in the marketplace, look at who's putting work out and say, oh, well, I'd love to try something like that. And if that's a genuine feeling, then you'll approach that with a different...
You've got to be active. So how much should you charge for said copywriting services?
It's a really difficult question to answer because obviously it depends on where you are in your career. Now, I was lucky when I started freelancing that I'd worked in the industry. I was then re-entering as a freelancer for a long time and knew roughly what I thought was good value for a promotion. I also knew what sort of revenue that promotion could generate, either in terms of new readers or whatever. So I had a pretty good understanding. So I've never had to sort of price my time.
Yeah.
But what I have done as time has gone on, as I've freelanced, I can see my accounts and I can start to work out, okay, what am I averaging per day?
Yeah.
So you can do it like that if you already have clients. In general, I've always tried to price myself slightly higher than where I thought other people would be, if only so that I would get serious clients who, if somebody offered me a very small amount to write a very small piece of copy, like a subject line, I would just say, no, I want to be up at the higher end. That's just because that was where I was entering the industry.
And I'd add, you pulling out of that, if someone asked me to write a subject line, I'd say no. What you really want to be thinking from a philosophical point of view, and I know it's like, oh, I just want to know how much, but you have to work it out yourself what you would be happy to do the work for. And the reason I say that is because I've gone from, I've written a lot for a little, and I've written a little for a lot, and I've been through it emotionally, figured it out. I've reined myself back in. I've gone out there, but it comes down to the fact that, are you happy to produce the work for that amount? If you're not, you will not produce the right work. Therefore, you just need to philosophically be thinking, am I happy with what I'm getting? And be honest about that to the client. But it's a personal thing you have to figure out. There isn't just a one size fits all. You have to work it out for yourself.
I think perhaps we should actually get somebody in who's perhaps gone through the Upwork sort of career path, or I don't know if a career path is the right word, but somebody who's gone through that. And actually, I'd be really interested if you have gone through that sort of that path. You know, leave a comment underneath the video with your experiences or challenges, things like that, because it is very different. If you already know your clients, you're already relatively established, there's a different way you can approach these things. If you're starting from scratch, somebody says £30 to write a 2,000 word blog post, but you're trying to get yourself into the industry. I don't know if you think that's good or bad.
Yeah.
So perhaps we need to bring some external people in to talk about that. Right, Glenn, what works better, fear or greed?
It depends on where your prospect is. And well, it comes back to the idea of where your prospect is or what the product you're selling. Both emotions, I guess the question behind that is what emotions work better. It depends what you're trying to sell. If you're trying to sell something where it's making loads of money, like have lots of fun, selling with fear isn't going to work, and vice versa. If it's saying that the world's ending and what have you, talking about greed is not going to help. So it all depends on what you're selling and who you're speaking to. But I would actually personally say fear.
I think
people are more fearful of things than
it depends. It makes us sound like, I mean, that's like the cliche of what the story says, isn't it? But I suppose it depends on the dominant emotion within your prospect.
Yeah.
If there's no fear in them about the idea that you're talking about, then you can't generate that fear. You can channel what exists already, but you cannot create things. You should never, ever believe in yourself to the extent that you think you can create an emotion in someone. You can only ever channel what's there. So what's there? If it's there, channel it. If fear is there, channel it. If greed is there, channel it. If you think they're both there, then that's where it becomes more difficult.
Yeah.
But in general, you are able to work out which one is dominant.
Yeah. What type of lead? So we talk about this being 6 kind of leads. We've discussed that in previous videos. But which type of lead do you think works best?
Problem solution. The reason being, that is the format to which I would default most often, particularly at the start of a project, particularly if I'm struggling. And the reason for that is it forces you to think about the customer.
Yep.
What is the problem? What is the anxiety? What is the thing that's keeping them up at night? And then it forces you to think about the product.
Yep.
How can I help solve that problem? Now, that doesn't mean to say that that format will win in every test that you run, and it may well be that you find a story or a promise or whatever it is. But I would say when I'm starting out, I'm thinking, how can I force this idea into a problem solution? Just because I know that it will force me to do that work of thinking about the customer, thinking about what's bothering them, thinking about the solution that my product can bring to bear on that problem, and I'll go from there. So I'll always at least try and write something in that format to begin with, even if it then gets scrapped, something emerges out of it.
Yep.
But I would say if you're not writing enough of that type of copy, you run the risk of, if you're writing lots of story leads, for instance, you're always running the risk of forgetting the reader or forgetting the product.
I think a lot of, I've noticed this generally out like in the world, a lot of companies and businesses often start with offer discount leads or pieces of copy as like the first port of call to generate business. But I actually think that's a mistake, because you're immediately going into the market with an offer, with discounting, with lowering the value of your offering.
You're also you're asking for a customer that is most interested in getting a discount, which you could argue is all customers, but obviously isn't, because there are customers who are interested in deeper benefits or deeper ideas, and those customers may well be more valuable customers to you. So if your relationship is built on the fact that you are willing to discount your product, then that is the type of customer that you will build your business around. That may be good, it may be bad, but it's not going to be good in all contexts. Right, next question. How should you go about using images in the headline of a sales letter?
You should not go about using images in the headline of a sales letter. I'm personally, and this is a personal thing, there are countless promotions that work well with images in the headline, but I don't personally like them because I feel like you're doing, it's copyright, you're doing words, and people use it as a crutch. Now, don't get me wrong, if you are advanced down the line and you're using it because you're testing a new headline against something else or what have you, there might be instances that it's usable. But I would personally try and avoid doing too much early thinking where you are relying on an image in a headline. But if you are going to use an image in a headline, what I would say is that it needs to be absolutely obvious. You did a good thing recently about being able to just point to things without having to explain what's kind of going on, and just being able to point. Can you point that? Is it obvious what that means? If it's not, if it's open to interpretation, you're in real trouble. So I would kind of veer towards that. And yeah, I'll stand by it because I just think there's so many other ways to. If that's the best, is that the best thing you can do with a headline, to use an image? I don't believe that's the case.
There's another way of thinking about this, which is, because I agree with you, but don't build your headline complex around an idea unless there's just some X factor reason why it really works. If you build it around that, there's risks that you're taking. However, if you create a headline complex that really works, has a nice clean idea to it, and you send it to the design team, the experts in using images, and they come back to you and say, we've done this, we've added to what you've done with an image, I think that can really work.
I would also give that designer a pay rise immediately because they're showing their thought of.
But they're the experts, so I always like to work like that if I can. If you can bring some of your expertise and layer it on top of what I've already done, that's the way this relationship's really going to work. If I have to dictate, that's not going to work because that's not what I'm good at. So I don't want to build around that because then it has to be worked out. But if somebody else can sprinkle something on top or bring their skills to bear, then that is often the perfect marriage of oh, I didn't imagine it with an image, but now I see it. That looks brilliant. So try to ask the person who works on the images.
We're going to get, at some point, I'm going to get a friend of mine who works in the kind of image world, and get that kind of relationship between like design / copyright. And I think people find that really interesting. In the meantime, though, how do you sell a product that you don't believe in?
You'll do it badly. If you don't believe in the product, you need to find a way of believing in that product. So you need to research the product even more, really get into the mindset of your intended customer. If you cannot do that and you still don't think that product is worth selling, then you shouldn't sell it. And if you can't do that for any products, you should probably leave the industry. Because that level of cynicism is where most of the badness that surrounds certain parts of the copywriting industry comes from. You should believe in what you're selling in. It doesn't mean that you have to think, I would buy this myself, but you should think, for this intended customer, for this prospect, this is a fantastic product. The only reasons I can think of to sell something you don't believe in, especially repeatedly, is literally if it is the difference between putting food on the table for your family or not. If it's life and death for you, then of course. But assuming that isn't the case, you should believe. How can you sell something that you don't believe in? And why would you sell something that you don't believe in? If something isn't great, then don't sell it. And I actually have the reverse version of this conversation with business owners that don't want to market. They don't want to try and sell their product. And I say, don't you think your product's good? Don't you believe in it? And they say, no, it's brilliant. I say, well, why would you ever feel bad about selling something that you think is good?
It's weird that gets asked so often. Like, so many copywriters worry about this, and I think it's something to do with the like the society and like the market has made us think that by selling is wrong in some way, and selling an idea is a bad thing, and shouting about something, but so you naturally think, oh right, I won't believe in everything. That's just not the case. If you don't like something, you shouldn't probably be like working in that area.
It's not bad. You're solving people's problems. You're offering people things that could help them live a better life, or solve an issue that they've had, or deal with an anxiety that they've got, or whatever. Sell quality products that solve real problems and sell them proudly. That's your job.
And if not, I'm thinking like we probably sound a little bit idealistic, but
no, but you absolutely should be.
I know you should be, but I'm trying to think from a practical point of view. If you find yourself in a position where people are not a kind of, you're like, oh, actually, this is cynical. If you have to be in that world, if it's like, as you say, your first job or whatever, I mean, be looking for other stuff. But if you go, just ask them really, like, try and like tease it out. Be more than just a copywriter doing the writing. Try and tease out and say, oh, why are we not like behind this? How could we improve it? Turn everything positively and try and figure that out as a practical piece of advice.
Right, next question. I don't know who has submitted this, but I'm glad they have, and I'm also glad that I'm asking you this and not the other way around. But somebody's asked us the question: who would win in a fight between Bill Bonner and Mark Ford? Now, you can define the word fight however you like there. You can be gentlemanly,
okay,
or you can be ungentlemanly.
Right. In a physical fist fight, I'm going to say probably, because Mark, I'm still probably doing it, does jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
I think Mark would probably have that knowledge and power right in a fist fight.
Yeah. It's all good stuff.
Yeah,
right?
in an intellectual fight, I think it would probably be somewhat of a stalemate. I think it would be like an Infinity War situation where they're just always fighting. It's a question that will go on for a long time in my thoughts, but I would say that they are very much a yin and yang situation where you need a bit of both of like Mark and Bill. We've spoke about this before, in the sense that they represent what I believe is at the heart of all copywriting. And that sounds like, oh, blah, blah, but I actually do believe it. There's a dichotomy between kind of the full-out salesman kind of side of things and the intellectual thought kind of thing, and you need a bit of both. Mm-hmm. So that's why I think when the fist fight happens, that will be like they'd be pretty strongly matched. Though I think Mark would probably like do some weird maneuver on Bill. Although Bill might have like some cattle from like Argentina and just stampede over.
Maybe
Mark.
Bill's good at jiu-jitsu, he's just never mentioned it.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? We just don't know. So what is? we just. My God, we do not know. When will we find out? Is what I want to know. And when is it Eddie Hearn? Eddie Hearn? Or who's? I mean, Don King's dead. I'm presuming.
Oh, the boxer guy. Yeah, let's not. No one's going to.
Where's it going to be held? I didn't even think about like home turf or whatever. It's very hard. If it's in Miami, like the beaches in Miami, Mark's probably got a home advantage. Whereas if it's in like a colder climate in Ireland, maybe Bill will be there. I don't know. It's a difficult but important question. I mean, I'm just still going to think about that for a long time. What is the difference between features and benefits?
Benefits are what you use to describe a product to. So, what is the difference between features and benefits? Features are things that are part of the product.
Yep.
Benefits are ways in which that offers a benefit or solves a problem to me, the prospect.
Yep.
So I guess you could boil it down and say features is sort of the language of the product, and benefits are sort of the language of the prospect.
Could you say almost it's, oh no, I was trying to say it's like what the product is versus what the product does.
Yeah, I think that's
a little bit like that, but
it's difficult because obviously when you internalize that process so much that you start to just think you start to think to yourself, why would I ever think in terms of features, but they're almost like specifications. So like, you know, the number of pages in a book is a feature. I mean, that's often used in a kind of cheap way of like this, it's a 700-page book, as if that is somehow a benefit. It isn't really, it's just a detail, it's a specification, it's a feature. You're trying to translate all of those things into things that matter to me, the prospect, but more than that, things that are attached to some form of emotion. So you're trying to turn them from the cold details, numbers, specs of the product.
I think behind
into
that question is the idea that we look to turn features into benefits and try and figure out what the product does, how that will help the consumer, how that will help the customer. That's the important thing that everybody should go through. But also, you say about emotions. When you think about features and benefits, more than anything, more than either of that kind of stuff, think about how do those things affect emotion.
You're trying to translate from the world of just real details and specs to emotional issues, you know, things that solve emotional problems, things that I have a strong feeling about. That's the translation you're trying to make. So, because even you can say, let's say it's the number of pages in a book, for instance. You could say, well, the benefit of that is it's only 50 pages, it's quick to read, but okay, that's a benefit, but can you make it even... Can you make that an even bigger thing? So it's like, this will only take you an hour. So you're only an hour away from having X problem solved. That's an hour. You see what I mean? So you're trying to get even further into the emotion. You could probably take that even further.
Yeah, and I guess with the brevity bus has departed and the not accepting any more people on board that bus. But I would also add, there's something to do with when it comes to features and benefits. I always like emotion, but just to go one further. How does it become a narrative? What's the story around that emotion as well, which is an interesting way to think about it.
Very true. Next question. Should you ask questions in headlines?
No.
Yeah, that's very true. Should we go on to that?
No, because I would urge people not to. Again, it comes back to that idea that is that the very best way you can express the idea that you're getting across? I really, really doubt it. And there's a chance that when you ask a question, you can very simply say no. Even if you actually believe something different, you can still just go, no, I haven't got time, I'm busy, I have to. A question is a very basic and very like rudimentary, cheap hook to try and get someone in going, are you intrigued? But it is a bit, and I think that's a cheap way of doing things. I think there's probably better ways to do it. Do them first. Your fifth, sixth, seventh test should be a question, maybe.
There's certainly a case to be made that a question in a headline, that there has to be a higher sort of barrier to entry for that making it.
Yeah, it has to be really good.
There has to be a really clear, justifiable reason why that's worth.
You will probably find the question. The actual statement element of that question is the interesting thing, and therefore I always, when I see a question headline, I often say, what if you just rephrase that question as a statement? And you'll find that that's probably stronger. The act of questioning is like a cheap hook. It really needs to be like completely valid and like better than everything, which I just doubt that's ever going to be.
The best one I've ever seen that really and this is the level that I would judge all other questions against, it was from years and years and years ago. It was a financial promotion all about oil in the Falklands. So the headline said, is this the real reason we invaded the Falklands? And it got into it. And I would say that's a good headline, but it's a very, very high level. It opens a loop. What is the real reason? And it's a very emotional, controversial subject. Okay, people died in that. So therefore, that's what I'm talking about, the high barrier to entry. That ticks a couple of boxes that really put it up there and maybe allows you to say, okay, let's let that one through. But if it doesn't meet those standards, I'm not saying it has to be about war and it has to be about oil, but it has to, that statement has something, doesn't it? And I think it has to be right up there, it has to be really challenging on a number of levels. Otherwise, why aren't you just rephrasing it?
Yeah. Does it help to copy out other people's copy by hand?
I did it when I started.
So did I.
So on that basis, I would say there must be something to it.
100% of people in attendance have become successful copywriters after
As a result of that.
Yeah.
Do I make people do it now? No. I certainly wouldn't use it as part of your pitch to get a job, which a lot of people do. They say, I've copied out. You get that a lot in application letters. And it's a way of saying, it's a shorthand, well, actually not so short. It's a way of people saying, I know how you're supposed to do this.
Yeah.
And I've done that. I always sort of I wouldn't put a cross next to somebody on that, but I definitely put a question mark. I think, well, why are you telling me that? You know, if the way of showing me that you're a good copywriter is to show me a piece of your work, not to say I've copied out 100 sales letters, because it sort of begs the question. Well, if I said what you had to do to become a great copywriter was smash 100 eggs on your forehead, would you send me the shells?
Which
would you say? So if you want to do it. And like you said, I did it, you did it, lots of other people did it. I'm not so sure it's a badge you want to stitch on your jersey and say,
no, I think it's
look.
a personal thing, isn't it? It's just, I think it does help from a point of view. I've just discovered a writer who he was copying out sections of the Bible. He's like written this really interesting kind of non-fiction/fiction work about like the early Christianity and all this, but he was literally going through a bit of a conversion before he unconverted himself and all this, but he's like copying out, but he revealed that he copies out a lot of writing, and it's like, he's a brilliant writer. He's like the best writer I've discovered in the recent times. But straight away I just thought, copying stuff out, like that's how you get this good. Like,
perhaps, but I'm going to say, I'm going to stand by and say, do it if you want to do it. I don't think it's going to make a massive difference to you. My alternative piece of advice to people who are in that part of their career is to write an analysis of copy. So take a 4-page lead, and next to every single line, you can't skip any, right next to it on the right-hand side of the page, what that line of copy is doing, and break every single line down and say, this piece of copy introduces this idea, this, whatever it might be, write an analysis of it.
Yep.
Because I actually think that brings a higher level of engagement, and I try to encourage copywriters. Once you can take other people's work apart and say, look, it works like this, you'll then bring that level of rigor to your own work, and I think that is ultimately more valuable.
Sub-question, would you write those notes by hand, or would you type them?
Generally speaking, I would, yeah. I don't know why. Well, mostly because there's no word.
Defer the writing by hand as an episode for the future. Because
yeah, there might be something in that. There might be something in that. But copying by rote, yeah, fine, do it. Don't show off about it. Nobody really cares. We all did it. It may or may not be central to whether or not we became good copywriters, but certainly don't use it as a way into an alternative business or trying to get an opportunity. But yeah, analyze copy rather than just copy it out by rote, because I think you need to use your brain slightly differently. Right, I think we've got through them all. Have we? Can you think of any that we haven't got?
I'm still thinking about the fight.
Okay, well, you think about that.
What they'd be wearing.
I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you very much for joining us. Like I said at the end of the last episode, if you want us to expand on any of these points, or you've got other questions, but maybe we'll do a Q&A like this every single month or whatever it might be, just either send us an email, or you can leave a comment underneath this video with feedback, suggestions, questions you'd like us to answer. We're happy to do as much or as little of this as you want. But like I say time and time again, we're only as good as the questions that we're getting, or the copy we're getting to review, or the challenges that we're setting. You know, we've got ideas that we think we can do, but nothing's going to be as useful as receiving requests and challenges from you, because you're the people that we work for ultimately. Although this is a free thing. So
your knees there, and like, it's just really emotional.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us. Like I said, leave a comment with suggestions for future episodes, and we will see you again somewhere down the line. Thank you and goodbye.
And there we have it. We hope you got something valuable out of today's episode of The Fix.
Maybe it sparked an idea or two for your next writing project. Maybe it triggered a new headline, opening line, or story to tell your reader.
Maybe it inspired you to scrap what you have and start over. Or maybe it made you want to submit your current work in progress for a little constructive feedback.
If that is the case, send your copy to us at feedback
at thefixcopywriting.com. Or if you don't want us to review a specific piece of writing, send us a problem you're trying to solve.
Or a challenge you want input on, and we'll do our best to help.
And remember, if you like The Fix, please do share it with other writers, business owners, and marketers.